Wicked is the first time we've seen this iconic Broadway musical in film form. Starring Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, I went into this film with no knowledge of the musical or any of the Wizard of Oz lore. To be honest though, none of the trailers really impressed me. I've always been open to musicals because a lot have impacted me greatly, but overall this just looked like another Hollywood cash grab. Now that I've seen the film, though it didn't blow me away, I was pleasantly surprised, and honestly I'm pretty excited for part 2. Before we get into it, over 90% of you guys who watch these videos aren't yet subscribed, so if you don't want to miss out on more reviews, hit that button. Both are wasting any more time. Let's get into it. Wicked Part 1 follows the unlikely friendship between Elphaba and Glinda as their relationship goes through ups and downs as their lives take them down different paths, one being the Wizard of Oz. For starters, my favorite part of this entire film was the two lead performances, but before getting into that, there are other great performances riddled throughout this film. Not all of them have a lot of screen time. I think Jonathan Bailey, who plays Pharaoh, is absolutely exciting. Like, he doesn't have that much screen time, but his dynamic with Glinda and Elphaba was absolutely hilarious. And then Michelle Yeoh, who plays the sorcery teacher, she was really great for a small little subplot, and I think the way that she turns throughout the entirety of the film was also really interesting. But our two lead performances, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande as Elphaba and Glinda respectively, are absolutely brilliant. Now, I think they are truly what makes this film work. If it wasn't these two actresses, I don't know if this would have worked at all. Starting with Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, I don't really know much about the character of Elphaba other than what this film gave us on a thematic level, which I'll touch a little bit more on later, but Cynthia absolutely embodies this role. I mean, both of the lead actresses disappear within these characters. It was actually really exhilarating to watch as the film evolved.
Come with me. What? To meet the wizard.
I couldn't possibly. This is your moment. I'm coming.
I think the competition is just a little bit too high for the best actress race right now, so I don't even know if Cynthia would be in that conversation. But on the other hand, Ariana Grande, in my opinion, should be at the highest of high talks for best supporting actress at the Oscars this year. She's absolutely amazing. Maybe it's because I didn't really expect it, but she absolutely blew me away. She is really the core, I guess, like humor of the film, and it's just because of how oblivious she actually is. And I'll talk more about, I guess, the thematic importance and difference between these characters later in the video. But again, I think this pair is absolutely perfect and makes the runtime not feel nearly as long as it is. Because yes, the runtime of this film is absolutely absurd. It comes in at 2 hours and 40 minutes, which in my opinion is just insane. But at the same time, I didn't really feel the runtime that much. I think it's because I didn't really know the story that well, so I was really interested to see where everything went. But after knowing the general idea and where this story goes, I don't think this film will really hold up on rewatch. Honestly, the only reason I didn't fall asleep during this movie is because the humor and the seriousness of this film is paced out to a T. Ariana Grande as Glinda is so funny that it doesn't take away from the serious moments, but it's the perfect balance of humor and seriousness that you'd expect a film with this much thematic prevalence to have, especially while also being a blockbuster and trying to appeal to massive age demographics. And before I get into talking more about story things, thematic things, I do have to give you guys a little bit of my Wicked experience because I don't know much about this world or timeline at all whatsoever. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Wicked is originally a Broadway adaptation of a book that is the prequel to Wizard of Oz. And according to fans online, from what my research, the film is more like the musical rather than the book. And going in, not knowing any of this, I think just made me even more excited for the story that was being told, because I was kind of experiencing this as just a film rather than an adaptation of something else. I wasn't going in with a baseline to compare it to, and I'm kind of happy about that because I don't know if I would have liked how this film ended had I seen the entirety of the play. I just had no clue where this was going to start or end. Just like the musical, this film does start in the very beginning with Glinda confirming to a group of villagers that the Wicked Witch of the West is dead. And I really like this film because we don't end with the witch's death, which of course, after the opening, I thought that's where this was going. I guess just in my shoes with my experience, this was the perfect part 1 of a story. It just gives us enough of not only the relationship, but the world and the overall evolution of these characters. And then I'm still very excited for where everything is going to blow up and go to in the second part. One of the most interesting things about Wicked, in my opinion, opinion, is the thematic relevance of it, because every single idea in this film is going to be relevant till the end of time, which is why I think obviously the Broadway play is so popular. If you've seen the play, it's basically the exact same things, these themes of colorism, human rights, racism, etc. The film does feel preachy at times, but this is also the perfect fantastical vessel for these very real problems.
Don't be afraid.
It's the wizard who should be afraid of me.
And again, I think this very thematically hefty and real film works perfectly in a fantastical world because of Cynthia and Ariana and how they completely disappear in their roles and how they stand on the impacted and oblivious sides of their characters respectively in the most believable way. And before getting into talking about Wicked Part 2, my biggest negative of this film is just that it is an absolute technical mess. There's good and bad things about it. On the good side of it, I think the score is absolutely beautiful. I'm not talking about the musical numbers themselves, but rather like the emotional swelling of peaking moments or very emotional moments where there is no score. The way that this film is paced out on a musical level, I think works well enough. I just didn't really find much of the music itself to be interesting, but the score is fucking amazing. And to get into the mixed elements of it, the CGI and VFX aren't bad, but it's not even the biggest problem this film has to face. The biggest problem is the fact that there literally is no visual style. There's no pop or pizzazz or literally any flavor to what is on screen. I think it was an on-set thing because some of the interior scenes look great where you can tell it's an enclosed set, but most of the outdoor sets look like the background is done in post. Plus the decision to use fake natural backlighting that blows out the color, it was definitely a decision. Because with literal basic color grading in my personal video editor, I can make certain scenes look 10 times more visually appealing. Just imagine what they could have done with a little bit more planning and pre-production of how this was all going to be laid out. And I'm only getting very heated about this because I think the detail on the sets and costumes is absolutely perfect. It's just captured like shit. Anyways, so what's next for the Wicked franchise? Wicked Part 2 was filmed back to back with Part 1. And if you haven't seen the play, obviously you could skip to my final score. But yes, Elphaba doesn't die by the end of this film. The second film is slated to release in just over a year, November 26th, 2025. And though it is deep into post-production at this point, I do think there is a possibility of delay if this film isn't received as well as Universal wants it to be. Again, I don't know much about the musical and where the story goes from here, so I'd love to hear from you guys who have seen the musical. What sequences, scenes, or musical numbers are you most excited to see in Part 2? Let me know in the comments. But by the way that this film ended, I am genuinely so excited to see more of this world. At the end of the day, I don't think Wicked is perfect. It's way too long and visually looks like absolute dog shit, but the leads are perfect together. The story and themes will always be relevant, and I think most fans of the musical will have a great time. Overall, I'm gonna give Wicked a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.